Hello, good morning, welcome guys. It is match day. It is a Rangers Thursday night. You know what? I was thinking, obviously this could be one of the final Rangers, hopefully one of the final Rangers Thursday nights, but hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully we've got at least another three to come. No, although when's the Europa League final actually isn't on a Thursday, I don't think. There we go. But anyway, look, we are making hopefully our first of two trips to Bilbao this season. Obviously, the second leg of the quarterfinals, the tie very delicately poised at 0-0. We'll obviously look ahead to that. We've got some news around that. Obviously, good news on the fitness front as well. Barry Ferguson confirming the likes of John Suter, Leon Balogun, Václav Černý have all trained ahead of the game in Bilbao tonight. We'll also talk a bit of Ross Mccausland, a bit of Ianis Hagi. We've got lots of different bits of news around those two as well. We'll try and catch up with as much as we can around that. Obviously, getting a video in this morning, guys. Thank you for sticking by the channel. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for all your support to this point. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again. Right, look, let's start off with talking about tonight's game. Tonight's game is, realistically, it's now a one-off cup tie, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. You know, it's 0-0. It's basically two teams that could either approach this one of two ways. You know, they can either both go for it, go for it from minute one, turn it into a real cup tie, a rip-roaring end-to-end battle as two teams do a gladiatorial battle on the San Mamés field, and obviously the strongest team will come out on top, or it will turn into a cagey defensive affair with neither team wanting to make a mistake, with perhaps only one error, basically meaning that one team goes out and one team goes through. That's always the situation, with these games. There never seems to be an in-between, I mean, realistically, tonight, Rangers have got to kind of, throw caution to the wind. There's nothing left to lose this season. There's nothing to play for domestically. Our domestic form absolutely stinks to high heaven. Domestically, we are an absolute joke at the moment. However, when it comes to a Thursday night in Europe, the players seem to want to play. I think it just shows to me, to be honest with you, what a bunch of absolute cheats these players are. The fact that when it comes to a Thursday night, they can turn it on and suddenly become, looking like a real good quality, high talented football team. The moment it comes to a domestic game in Scotland against the likes of St Johnstone, or the likes against Hibernian or Motherwell or Aberdeen, they look like a bunch of absolute carpet beaters. It just genuinely doesn't make any sense. And I think, to be honest with you, no matter what happens, they should hang their heads in shame for doing that. Realistically, you cannot pick and choose when you play. If you play for a team like Rangers, as Barry Ferguson has said on multiple occasions, it's easy to get up for Celtic. It's easy to get up for Bilbao away in the Europa League, or Manchester United in the Europa League. But, that's not the test, is it? As a player, you've got to get yourself up for Hibs at home, Dundee away, for Motherwell at home, St Mirren away. They're the games you've got to get yourself up for, and you've got to be just as intense in those games as you are in the in the European competition. So, look, at the end of the day, that's something that does need to be rectified going into next season. Look, Athletic Bilbao come off the weekend where they won 3-1 against Rayo Vallecano. Goals from Sunset with 2 and Nico Williams with the other. They will be the danger men, obviously, coming into tonight's game. They play their 4-2-3-1 formation. Very strong team as well. They put out at the weekend Unai Simon, who will not obviously play in the in the Europa League tie, which I think doesn't make much sense to me. He's the best goalkeeper in Spain. Grasabal, Vivian, Paredes, Boiro, Harexare, Prados, Jalo, Gomez, Berenguer, and Grazetta. That was their sort of tie, and then they ended up bringing on, that was they started off very much like Rangers, didn't they? They played a weakened side, but then brought on Sunset, they brought on Inaki Williams, they brought on Nico Williams, they brought on obviously the strength of their team to help them get the victory. So look, that's them. But they have, like us, rested players ready for this game because, realistically, yes, they are chasing Champions League football in Spain. But, I think they see the Europa League and the prospect of a home final as a great opportunity to try and win a trophy this season. And, something that they will be desperately trying hard to do. And, I'll tell you something, I know that Ibrox is a ferocious atmosphere, and it certainly is. I think, one of the best in Europe on its day. but there will be a ferociously partisan atmosphere in Bilbao tonight. The Basque people are very fiery, temperamented, and will fight and will want their team to go out and win tonight. So it will be a real test for Rangers, both off and on the field, in terms of that noise and that wall of sound. And one of the things that Rangers maybe do need to do is to perhaps try and get an early goal and put the crowd on edge. Turn the crowd against the team, quieten the stadium down, and really turn that into a non-effect. Or else, if, say, Bilbao are successful early on, get perhaps their tails up, play well, build up a head of steam, then maybe even get an early goal, you'll find that the noise level will go through the roof, and it will become tougher and tougher to get back into the game. So, look, we are going to talk, obviously, about other things, but we are starting off with the game tonight. I think we'll go with 3 at the back again tonight. That seems to be Barry's preferred European formation. I think as well we'll probably see Hagi, in that kind of off the left wing, kind of dropping back to make it a 5. I think what playing the 3 at the back does, and playing this 3-4-3 in effect, is that when we attack as a 3-4-3, but when we defend as a 3-5-2. There are even a 3-6-1 to some degree, as Czerny drops in right side, Hagi drops into the middle, or whoever is playing in that Hagi role drops into the middle to kind of make that 6-man midfield, to make us very hard to play through. Because I know one of the things that has been a major criticism of Rangers this season is how easy we are to play through at times. In terms of the lineup tonight, look, a few controversial decisions here. Bear with me. Let me go through them. I'm going to put Jack Butland back in goal tonight. I just think that Liam Kelly is not the man to carry it off tonight. I thought the weekend against Aberdeen, he was poor. I thought he was to blame for that free kick goal. He was far too far over. That was really bad positioning. And I think, look, I don't want to call that out because he's a very solid backup goalkeeper, and that's what he is, a very solid backup goalkeeper. But if that had been Jack Butland letting in that goal, he'd have got absolutely slaughtered by some of our fans. Yet Liam Kelly seems to get a free ride. Why is that? I don't know. I know Butland has made a fair few mistakes this year. I just think that in that high-pressure atmosphere of the San Mamés, under that intense bombardment of sound and probably attacking play as well, I would go with the more experienced, the better player, the better, more talented goalkeeper. And who knows, the being dropped for 2 games might have actually had a positive effect on him, might have jarred him into getting back to where he was. I just personally don't rate Liam Kelly. I just don't think he's good enough at this level. Yes, I know he saved the penalty and everything, but I think that was more by luck than judgment in the first leg. I would go with Butland in goal. I really, really genuinely would. My back 3, I think, again, we are limited by injuries. We are limited by suspension. We are limited, obviously, by the fact that Dujon Sterling is out injured, that Proper is suspended. So, we've realistically got to go with those 3 central centre-backs. Now, I know that Clinton Nziala is perhaps not the strongest of players, but for me, if you move Tavernier back to centre half and play Ridvan on the right hand side, and you play Hiefte on the left, and you play Czerny on the right, and you play Hagi on the left, I just think it narrows the game down and pushes it far to the left. So it basically means that there's no width to the right at all, because Czerny naturally comes in, Ridvan naturally comes in. Whereas if you put Tavernier out there, and perhaps you put someone like Balogun behind him to cover him, it enables Tavernier to give that natural width, to get to the byline, to put the ball into the box, and to create problems for Bilbao, which is something that we do need to do. I just feel that playing Tavernier at right side centre back restricts what he can do going forward, and let's face it, his defensive skills are not the best. He is realistically in the team because of his attacking skills. James Tavernier defensively is one of the worst defenders in Scotland. Attacking as an attacking defender, he's one of the better ones. So for me, I would put Tavernier right wing back, put Balogun as the right side centre of the right of the 3, Suit it in the middle to control them. You heard Barry Ferguson in his presser today talking glowing terms about John Suter and what he brings to the team. So for me, I would go with Suter in that central role to control it, to talk Nziala through the game, to control that back 3. And Nziala also as the left-sided centre-back, as the left-footed centre-back, provides a natural balance and a natural cover to that side, which means he can go to the left-back slot. So, we can even, you can even graduate that team into a 4-4-2 to some degree, with Tav drops back to right back and Ciala shifts over to left back, and so on and so forth, and Ridvan pushes down the wing. You've got a sort of flexibility and a fluidity to you attacking it and to your play with that shape to me. Midfield 4, like I've said, Tav as one wing back, Ridvan as the other, naturally right-footed, naturally left-footed, holds the width, also drops back in as a 5 when they defend. You go with, for me, you go with Raskan and you go with Diamonde back in the team. Look, Dio domestically has been poor. Yeah, I get that. And I 100% understand that domestically he has been very, very poor. But in Europe, on the whole, he's actually played quite well. I think European football suits him. The lack of, obviously, physicality, the lack of intensity, the lack of quickness of movement. The more time you get on the ball, the more time you get to turn away from players. I just think it suits Dio's game a whole lot more in Europe. If it was domestic, if we were playing, I don't know, Hearts tonight or Celtic, I would perhaps go with Barron, give more physical presence in there. But because it's Europe, you go with Dio. I would put Czerny and Hagi off Hamza. Czerny right side, give him the bit of freedom to go where he wants, to go outside right, to come inside again. Hagi as well, I think from that left-hand side, can go outside onto his left foot to put the ball in the box, but can also drop back in and defend in and come from the 10 role as well. Gives you fluidity. You can have interchange there as well. Hagi goes right, Czerny goes left. I think, again, there is a fluidity there, which is something you will need to move the Bilbao defence around to cause them problems. Now, for me, you have to... I don't think Barry will. I think he'll go with Dessers, which I think is a huge, massive error that could cost us the game. But you've got to go with Hamza up top. You look at Hamza, and he's kind of one shot, one goal. His conversion rate is a hell of a lot better than Cyril Dessers. You look on in the game against Aberdeen, he scores 2 goals, 1 is disallowed. The game against Celtic, he comes on, gets 1 chance, puts it in the back of the net. When the pressure's on, he produces. Aberdeen, he produces. He gets us back into the game. Celtic, he wins us the game. Cyril Dessers will probably get... I mean, we may create, say, 2-3 chances in the game. Those 2-3 chances fall to Cyril Dessers. He's as likely to blaze them over the crossbar as score a goal. I don't have any faith or confidence in him if the chance falls to him taking it and giving us the goal to take us through to the semi-finals. I just think you cannot, in this game where chances may well be at a premium, where that you will have to take that one chance that falls to you. You cannot, under any circumstances, start a striker who you cannot rely on to put the ball in the back of the net. You just can't. And to all those Dessers lovers out there, I say this: 1 goal in 18 attempts. If you think that is acceptable, then you need to give your head a bit of a wobble, because I'm sorry, that is not acceptable. You cannot rely on him. Even on Saturday, he hits the fucking post instead of putting the ball in the back of the net when it's easier to put it. He's just useless. He is absolutely bloody... I would have left him in Glasgow. I really genuinely would. He could have mopped out the changing room or something useful with his time or something like that. I don't know. Or, gone to be Donkey in Shrek, or something. But to me, you've got to go with Hamza. Better player, more technically gifted, more skill, more ability, better hold-up play. And that's another thing. Hamza will hold the ball up and help us to get out. Bilbao will push onto us, so getting out will be the key. Dessers' hold-up play is shocking. So for me, it's got to be Hamza up top. I don't think it will. I think Barry will go with his love child, Dessers, which to me is a huge, huge mistake. Look, I really can't call this one. I genuinely can't call this one. I'm going to go 1-1, Rangers to go through on penalties. That's what I'm going to go. 1-1, Rangers to go through. I just genuinely can't call it. Genuinely can't. And I'm not going to back us to lose. I'm just not. Look, other news, guys. Let's talk about a bit of other news going around, away from obviously tonight's game against Bilbao. Massive, absolutely huge. Obviously, other ties tonight. Bodo look like they're through. Man United tie evenly balanced with Lyon. Tottenham's tie evenly balanced with Eintracht Frankfurt also. Right, let's talk a little bit of Ross Mccausland, shall we? Now, Ross Mccausland was sent off on Sunday against Aberdeen. And he looked really poor in that game. 2 ridiculously stupid lunges, and he gets himself sent off. Lets his teammates down, lets the team down, and it realistically could have cost us a point. It cost us, in effect, 3. Look, you go back, and I'm not going to start hating on Ross because I love wee Ross. And you go up, and anyone who's going to come out and say, "Oh, you hate Ross Mccausland," no, go back across my videos because I'll tell you something. I defend Ross Mccausland against abuse that he gets. I defend wee Ross against a lot of people coming after him. So please don't come that with me. I just look at him as a coach. I look at him in this Rangers team, and I just think he doesn't offer anything. He doesn't offer that extra level of talent you need to play for this team. He just, to me, has not got it to move on. Now, what we do with Ross Mccausland, who knows? Maybe he's good enough to be a squad player, someone we use and call on in domestic football, for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 15 minutes in another game. I do believe that he perhaps needs to go out on loan. He needs a bit of varied experience. He needs to bulk up a little bit. But I genuinely believe that he, at the moment, as he is at this present moment in time, Ross is not good enough for Rangers. He just simply isn't. And I hate saying that because I love the lad to bits and I know that he's Rangers through and through and nothing means more to him than putting that shirt on. He's one of the few players who actually does care about that shirt, does care about playing for the club. You can tell that. You saw him interviewed post the League Cup win last season. He talked about how last League Cup when he was up in the crowd with the fans. We know that he loves the club, but I just think that there is still, I'd like to see him go on loan, get a bit of bulk on him, and then come back and then see what he can do as a squad player initially. If he still isn't up to that standard, then yeah, we do need to look at how we can move him on and generate a little bit of money for him. That's just how it is. And look, I hate saying that. I'd love to see him succeed. I'd love to see him, there's something special, isn't there, about one of your own, kind of succeeding. And that's Ross for me. That's Ross. Okay, look, Ianis Hagi, the latest on the Ianis Hagi contract debate. Now, there are a number of clubs apparently across Italy, Spain and Turkey interested in securing the services of Ianis Hagi for next season. One of the main links that I've read recently is Genoa of the Italian Serie A, apparently very, very interested in taking Ianis to Serie A next season. Obviously, he will be available on a free after his contract expires at the end of the season. However, there's been talk, obviously, that contracts have been offered and contracts have been rejected by Ianis because of the fact that, that initially the contracts that were offered were allegedly, and I use the word allegedly because I don't know, I haven't got any special inside information on this, I'm merely going off what's been reported, that the deals that were offered to him were on substantially less than he is on now. And look, I don't blame the lad. I really don't. I mean, look, he, during the whole contract fallout with that Belgian waffler, he did exactly the right thing. He turned up to train every day, even though he was with the reserves. He played for the B team. He showed exactly the right attitude and obviously eventually got back in the team and arguably was one of our better players for a long period of time. And that first Old Firm game that we won at Ibrox, second Old Firm game, but the first one we won the season, he was arguably the best player on the field. Got that initial goal, and I think we do miss him. He controls the tempo of the game. He can play a killer pass. He can go past a man. He can take a shot. He's got everything in his locker to be a top player. I do think he is misused at times. I don't think that Barry Ferguson uses him enough. But there's still, stories coming out of the club that they want to retain him. They want him to stay at the club. And according to, what we're hearing from Ianis' people is that he's not against staying at the club, that he wants to be here. He indicated that in the statement he made, around the turn of the year, around the time when he got back into the side. Personally speaking, I would like to see him sign a new deal and stay at the club. Yes, we do need to sell and get rid of a lot of players to generate space on the wage bill, to get money in, to supplement the amount of money we need to spend to catch up with Celtic. But, at the same token, you do need to retain some of those players. You can't chuck every single player out. And to me, Ianis is one of those players who's done nothing wrong at all. And I'd like to see him given a new contract. There's talk of this been in the offing. It's whether or not the two parties can come to an agreement. Now, obviously, talks over new contracts are going to stall to some degree until the takeover is rubber stamped. Now, the takeover is on the way to being rubber stamped, hopefully by the end of April. So hopefully by the end of April, something will be in place. and we can start looking at, players who we do want to give new contracts to. Because look, the present board can't sign off on any new contracts, I would imagine, because it's going to be the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh holding the purse string. So whoever's appointed as the new sporting director, whoever comes in to kind of run the club, whether that be Greta Steinson or someone else, Davey Weir has been mentioned. They're going to be the ones that make the decision over the likes of Ianis and his future at the club, and we need to kind of wait for that to happen. But it is, I think, a situation that will need to be addressed very, very swiftly once the change in regime has happened. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on the stories we've covered this morning or this afternoon or this evening. Depends, obviously, when you've watched the video. Let me know your team for tonight. Let me know your score predictions. Let me know what you think about Ross Mccausland. And let me know your thoughts on Ianis Hagi. Well, thank you for watching. On the way out, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember always, we are the people.